The morning sun hit my driveway like it was mocking me. There I stood, half-packed moving truck idling, finally saying goodbye to Harmony Grove Estates after 15 years, when red and blue lights painted my garage door like some bad cop show. Victoria Langley, clipboard clutched like a holy relic, floral blazer starched to military perfection, planted herself dead center and barked into her phone. Yes, officer, he's removing community assets without clearance. I blinked, gripping a box labeled Laura's Roses, handle with care, and actually laughed out loud because in that moment I realized the truth. In HOA land, even your freedom comes with a permission slip and a fine print footnote. My name's Harlan Reed, 58, retired structural engineer, widower, and apparently now public enemy number one for the crime of wanting to breathe without a committee vote. 15 years ago, Laura and I bought this house because the brochure promised serene suburban harmony. She painted the porch swing that exact shade of sky blue the bylaws later banned. She planted heirloom roses along the fence the association later declared non-compliant foliage. After the cancer took her, the silence in these rooms grew teeth. I kept paying every ridiculous fee, mowing the lawn to the exact 2.5-inch military specification, painting the mailbox the approved Harmony Beige 47. I thought endurance was dignity. Turns out it was just slow-motion surrender. My daughter Olivia, Detective Olivia Reed, badge and all, flew in from the city to help pack. She has her mother's sharp eyes and my stubborn streak. Dad, she said that first night, flipping through the latest HOA newsletter like it was evidence in a homicide. They've already labeled you non-compliant resident in active violation status. I shrugged, trying for humor. Guess I finally made the naughty list. She didn't smile. This isn't rules anymore. This is a cult with better landscaping. The letter arrived the next morning, taped to my door in bright red ink like a ransom note. Final notice, $3,800 community restoration and exit compliance fee due immediately. Reason, unauthorized property departure and aesthetic disruption. I stared at it until the paper blurred. Laura's roses were still blooming beside the porch. Apparently their crime was existing without board approval. Olivia read over my shoulder, coffee in hand. They're charging you for leaving? That's not a fee. That's extortion with extra steps. I decided to handle it like an adult. I marched down to the old community clubhouse they'd turned into their little fiefdom. Victoria sat behind a desk that probably cost more than my first car, smiling that smile. The one that says, I'm being so reasonable while I ruin your life. Mr. Reed, she cooed without looking up, to what do we owe this unannounced visit? I slapped the letter down. This is my property. County records show I de-annexed 14 months ago. I'm not even in your little kingdom anymore. She finally met my eyes, adjusting her pearl earrings like they were weapons. Oh, but you see, our updated boundary map, approved last quarter and announced in the monthly bulletin you apparently stopped reading, places your lot back under Section 4. Community responsibility doesn't end just because you want to run away, dear. I felt my blood pressure do a slow climb. You can't just redraw lines on a map because it suits your spreadsheet. Victoria leaned forward, voice dripping honeyed venom. We can and we did, for the aesthetic integrity of Harmony Grove. Property values are everyone's responsibility, even those who choose to abandon their neighbors. Behind her, a little American flag hung limp, looking embarrassed to be there. Olivia, who had slipped in behind me, spoke up, voice calm as a sniper. Aesthetic integrity? Is that HOA speak for we want to keep milking him for cash? Victoria's smile twitched. Detective, is it? I suggest you stay in your lane. This is administrative, not criminal. Olivia's badge caught the light as she folded her arms. Keep telling yourself that. We walked out into the too-perfect sunshine. Every lawn the exact same height, every mailbox aligned like soldiers waiting for inspection. Olivia muttered, she's lying about the map. I can smell it. I sighed. Smells don't win in court, kid. She gave me that detective side-eye. Sometimes they do if you follow the money. The next morning, 3 more envelopes waited in my mailbox like vultures. One was a lean threat, one an escalation notice, and the third, my favorite, accused me of visual pollution for leaving a single cardboard box on the curb for 6 hours. I stood there in my bathrobe, coffee going cold, and felt the first real spark of something dangerous. Not anger, but the quiet, patient fury of a man who's done being polite. Victoria's looping handwriting on the sticky note attached to the last one read, "Still time to cooperate, Harlan. Let's not make this ugly." "Too late, Vicky. Ugly was coming for you," wearing steel-toed logic. That afternoon, they sent 2 workers in matching polo shirts to spray orange warning paint on my driveway, the one I poured myself 15 years ago. "HOA orders," one shrugged when I asked. "Surface material non-compliant." I almost laughed until I saw Olivia filming everything from the porch, timestamping like a pro. "Classic," she said later. "Drown you in paperwork until you drown yourself." They've done it to 3 other families I already checked. That night, I sat on the porch swing Laura painted, half-packed boxes behind me, and watched porch lights flick on across the cul-de-sac like judgmental little eyes. Every single one felt like it was watching me. And somewhere in the dark, Victoria Langley was probably updating her spreadsheet, sipping Chardonnay, convinced the peasants would never revolt. The first police visit came at 10:47 p.m. Noise violation, operating heavy machinery after hours. I was literally asleep. The officer looked exhausted when I opened the door in pajamas. "Look, Mr. Reed, we've had 3 calls from your HOA president tonight alone. Between you and me, this feels personal." Behind him, half hidden by a perfectly manicured bush that wasn't even hers, Victoria pretended to prune while her phone screen glowed. She waved sweetly. "Just ensuring community safety, officer." The cop gave me the universal, "I'm sorry, man," look and left. Victoria's parting shot drifted across the lawn. "Compliance is so much easier than confrontation, Harlan. You'll learn." The next morning, the community Facebook group lit up with a new post titled, "Resident Harlan Reed Observed Engaging in Disorderly Conduct." Comments poured in, people I'd barbecued with, people Laura had baked cookies for. Some folks just can't follow simple rules. Sad when grief turns into entitlement. I sat at my kitchen table staring at the screen while Olivia slammed her laptop shut. "She's running a smear campaign." I corrected her softly. "No, she's running scared. And scared people get sloppy." 2 nights later came the second police call, unauthorized construction. This structure in question? A bookshelf I was carrying to the truck. Same officer showed up, shaking his head. "Sir, I have to respond, but off the record? Check the complaint log at the station." Same caller ID, same pattern. Olivia's eyes lit up like Christmas. Pattern meant evidence. Motive meant case. And Victoria had just handed us both on a silver clipboard. The spray paint on my curb the next morning read, "Rules are rules," in perfect looping script that matched every nasty letter I'd received. Olivia snapped photos, filed the report, and whispered, "She's losing control." Bullies always scream loudest when the walls start cracking. I looked at the roses still blooming defiantly by the fence and smiled for the first time in weeks. Let her scream. I was done listening. By now the mail was a daily avalanche of certified threats, each one more politely vicious than the last. "We appreciate your continued commitment to community values." Community values. Laura used to say the only real value here was the one they could monetize. Every night I sat on that porch swing, watching the neighborhood lights blink in perfect unison, and realized something cold and clear. This wasn't about grass height or mailbox color. It was about power wearing a smile and calling itself harmony. Olivia placed a thick folder on the kitchen table the following evening, printed emails glowing under the lamp. "Public records request." Turns out even dictators have to file paperwork eventually. She's been backdating fines, forging signatures, and copying templates from another county, Olivia said quietly. And every single restoration fee flows straight into her husband Derek's landscaping company. Over $200,000 in 18 months, all disguised as emergency maintenance. I stared at the numbers until they stopped being ink and started being stolen futures. Neighbors who skipped vacations, widows who chose between medicine and fines, families who sold because the stress broke them. Victoria hadn't just been a bully. She'd been running a suburban Ponzi scheme with perfectly trimmed hedges as cover. I walked the neighborhood the next day, not as the angry resident, but as the quiet engineer who'd fixed everyone's fences and listened to their stories. Mrs. Alvarez from 2 doors down met me at her mailbox, voice shaking. "They fined me twice for the same bird feeder." Said it disrupted visual harmony. I paid because I was scared. Mr. Thompson across the street showed me his stack of notices, identical to mine. I thought I was the only one. Each conversation was another brick in the wall we were building. By midnight, the kitchen looked like a war room. Color-coded timelines, bank statements, neighbor affidavits. Olivia leaned back, coffee in hand. We're not just exposing her anymore. We're ending her little kingdom. The cease and desist letter arrived 2 days later. Unauthorized defamation of HOA officials. The irony was so thick I could have spread it on toast. Olivia just smiled that dangerous smile. Desperation smells like cheap perfume and fear. She called her records clerk buddy at the precinct. An hour later, the news dropped. Derek Langley's LLC had lapsed 2 years ago. They'd been collecting money under a ghost company. Olivia's voice went cold. That's not a mistake. That's felony fraud with extra HOA sprinkles. That night, I stood among Laura's roses one last time. The flowers she planted the year before the diagnosis. Keep them alive, she'd said. They'll remind you beauty survives control. I finally understood. Because this fight had never been about leaving a house. It was about refusing to let someone else own my peace. The emergency HOA meeting was called for that Thursday night. The clubhouse smelled like burnt coffee and panic. Folding chairs squeaked under nervous neighbors. Victoria sat at the head table like a queen whose crown was slipping, floral blazer still perfect, smile still glued on. Tonight's agenda, she announced, voice syrupy, includes landscaping updates and member disciplinary matters. Her eyes landed on me like twin lasers. A ripple went through the room. Olivia stood at my shoulder, slim black folder in hand, badge hidden for now. I walked to the podium carrying a banker's box that squeaked louder than the fan overhead. Evening, everyone. This won't take long. I pulled out the first document. My de-annexation filing, county stamped 14 months ago. I'm not your member. Never was after that date. Victoria cut in smoothly. Our updated map. I slid the next page onto the projector. The signature enlarged across the wall like a crime scene photo. Signed by Derek Langley, your husband, owner of the very landscaping company that's been cashing every fine check. Gasps. Phones came out. Victoria's smile cracked at the edges. Olivia stepped forward, voice steady as courtroom steel. Detective Olivia Reed, off-duty but very much on record. Holt Property Solutions LLC registration lapsed 2 years ago. Every map, every fee, every backdated notice, fraudulent. She clicked the remote. Bank records filled the screen. $212,000 in consulting fees that somehow always landed in the Langley's personal account. The room inhaled as one. Mrs. Alvarez stood first. I paid $475 for a bird feeder that's still on my porch. Twice. Mr. Thompson followed. They charged me for inspecting my own roof. Twice the same week. Hands shot up like popcorn. The dam broke. Victoria banged the gavel so hard the little American flag jumped. This is a witch hunt. He's a bitter ex-resident dragging his daughter into... Stop. Tom Whitaker, the vice president, said quietly. He'd been silent all these years. Not anymore. I moved for immediate suspension of the president pending independent audit. Seconded before Victoria could even blink. Hands flew up, more than half the room. Victoria's face went from porcelain to porcelain shattering. You people have no idea what you're doing. Without me, this place becomes chaos. Someone in the back laughed bitterly. Lady, chaos would be an improvement over your harmony. Olivia laid the final packet on the table, the one with the state investigator's contact already attached. This isn't a meeting anymore. It's your chance to correct the record before the warrants do it for you. Victoria lunged for the power cord. Tom's hand stopped her. For the first time, the Queen had no subjects left to command. Morning light poured across my driveway like a fresh start. The moving truck was finally loaded. Laura's porch swing secured in the back, roses carefully wrapped. I turned the key, ready to leave Harmony Grove Estates in my rear view forever. That's when the sirens screamed around the corner again. Victoria Langley marched up the driveway like she owned the concrete, clipboard raised like a battle standard, phone already recording. Officers, he's stealing HOA property. Until the audit concludes, this house and everything on it remains under association jurisdiction. The two cops, The same pair who'd been here 3 times before actually groaned out loud. One stepped forward. "Ma'am, we've been over this. It's a civil matter." Victoria's voice rose into that special register only entitled Karens can reach. "He admits he's removing community fixtures. The wind chimes. The porch chair. They affect property values." Olivia stepped out of the truck, leather badge case flipping open in the sunlight. Detective Olivia Reed. As of 8:12 this morning, Victoria and Derek Langley are subjects of an active state fraud investigation. 2 counts falsifying records, 1 count forgery, multiple counts of harassment and financial misconduct. She handed the lead officer the warrant. Victoria's clipboard hit the pavement with a plastic clatter that sounded like freedom ringing. "You're bluffing," she whispered, but her eyes were already dead. Olivia motioned, and the records clerk from the precinct stepped out, holding a tablet full of transactions. Every single fake fee, every backdated notice, every dollar routed through a dead LLC, laid out in neat digital glory. Neighbors poured onto their lawns, phones up, recording the exact moment the tyrant became the criminal. Mrs. Alvarez actually cheered. Victoria's floral blazer suddenly looked ridiculous, like a costume that no longer fit. She tried one last desperate swing. "Without me enforcing order, this neighborhood will fall apart. Property values will plummet. Chaos." Olivia's answer was ice. "Order isn't the same as control, Vicky. You built a kingdom on fear and forged signatures. Now the kingdom's voting you off the island." The cuffs clicked. The sound echoed down the cul-de-sac like the sweetest symphony. Victoria twisted as they guided her toward the cruiser, mascara starting to run. "You think this fixes anything, Harlan? They'll come for you next." I just smiled, calm as the lake I was finally moving toward. "Watch me drive away, Vicky. Watch me breathe." The cruiser pulled off, sirens fading into the kind of silence that actually felt peaceful. Neighbors surrounded me, handshakes, hugs, apologies that had been bottled up for years. The state auditors arrived by noon. By evening, the clubhouse sign read, "Closed for audit, under state review." Within a week, the entire HOA was dissolved, pending reorganization. Lawns grew a little wild. Kids left bikes on sidewalks again. Someone painted a mural on the old clubhouse wall, handprints in every color, no two the same. They even renamed the place Cedar Grove Commons, the name it had before Victoria rewrote history. 2 months later, I stood on the porch of my new lake cabin, roses planted exactly where Laura would have wanted them. No fences, no bylaws, no clipboards. Olivia visited every weekend, bringing case files and bad coffee, making sure no new Victoria ever rose from the ashes. One evening, she handed me a photo of the old neighborhood. Kids playing where Victoria once patrolled, roses blooming under windows that used to hide behind curtains of fear. On the back, a small plaque had been mounted, in honor of those who stood for fairness when it wasn't easy, the residents of Cedar Grove Commons. I looked out over the water, wind chimes singing freely in the breeze. Peace, I finally understood, doesn't come from perfect lawns. It comes from refusing to let anyone else decide what your life is worth. So tell me, was I the troublemaker for daring to leave, or was Victoria the real criminal hiding behind community standards and floral blazers? Who was truly in the wrong here? Drop your answer below. Because the next time an HOA Karen tapes a notice to your door, remember, sometimes the quietest neighbor is just loading the evidence.